Okay, so you know how sometimes you're just reading the Bible, right? And you come across those parts, where you have to stop and go like, what?
Oh, yeah. I think we've all been there. It's like hitting a speed bump in the middle of a familiar road.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it seems like a lot of you out there have been hitting those same speed bumps based on the questions we've been getting.
Definitely. People are really curious about those odd, even, well, bizarre parts of the Bible.
Right. And we're going to dig into those head scratchers, but today we're taking it a step further, going off the beaten path, you could say.
Hmm.
We're diving into the Book of Enoch.
Ah, Enoch. Now that's a deep rabbit hole for sure. It's like the Bible's mysterious cousin that got, well, disinvited from the family reunion a long time ago.
Exactly. Most Jewish and Christian traditions don't consider it part of the official canon, which makes it even more intriguing.
It's this ancient text that had a huge influence, especially in early Christianity, yet it's mostly been kind of whispered about in the shadows.
Right. It's like, you think the talking donkey is weird. Wait till you hear about this. So, we're on a mission here today, folks. We're going deep, exploring those aha moments, and maybe even figuring out why these super old stories still have such a hold on us today.
Absolutely. And it all started with those strange, almost unbelievable passages you all were asking about in the Bible. It's like a glimpse into a totally different worldview where miracles and the supernatural were, well, just a normal part of life. Not quite the way we see things now, is it?
Right, it's so different, like those Nephilim guys in Genesis. Those are supposed to be the children of sons of God and human women. I mean, who are these sons of God? Giants, angels, some kind of divine hybrid. Talk about starting off with a bang.
It's like Genesis throws that out there and then just moves on, almost like a teaser trailer for a bigger story.
Right. It definitely leaves you hanging like, wait, what? More details, please? And then there's Ezekiel's vision, which is, well, kind of trippy. Four-faced creatures, wheels inside wheels, eyes everywhere, a glowing throne. It's like ancient psychedelic art come to life.
It's meant to be overwhelming, right? Showing us how awesome and, well, otherworldly the divine is supposed to be.
Yeah, it definitely gets the point across. And then there's Balaam and his chatty donkey. I mean, a donkey giving life advice. That's got to be a first.
It really makes you think about communication, doesn't it? Like, maybe God works in mysterious ways using anything, even a donkey, to get a message through.
And how about that sundial that did a rewind for King Hezekiah? That's like messing with the very fabric of time.
It's all about divine power. God basically says, look, I can control time itself. Nothing is impossible for me.
Pretty powerful stuff. And then there's the Valley of Dry Bones in Ezekiel. You've got this valley full of skeletons, and bam, they all jump up and become this huge army. Talk about a comeback story.
Right. It's a powerful metaphor for, well, resurrection, bringing something dead back to life. There's a lot of hope in that image.
Oh, and who could forget Elijah taking that fiery chariot ride straight up to heaven? No death, no goodbyes, just zoom. Up he goes.
Talk about an exit. It's like this special reward, this instant connection with the divine. Maybe it's even hinting at, the idea of life after death, going straight to God.
And let's not forget about that time the earth opened up and swallowed those guys who rebelled against Moses. Yikes.
It's a pretty clear message about divine justice, isn't it? Like, don't mess with God's chosen people. You might end up as, well, part of the landscape.
And then the Book of Revelation? Talk about bizarre creatures. You've got locusts with human faces and lion teeth and who knows what else. It's a whole parade of the strange and creepy.
Revelation is full of symbolic language. Those creatures are supposed to represent chaos and evil, the big battle between good and bad that's coming. It's like a divine horror movie, right?
Yeah, it definitely sticks with you. So the Bible has its weirdness for sure. But as we mentioned, we're going even deeper today. The Book of Enoch. It's like taking those strange parts of the Bible and making them, well, even stranger. Can you give us a crash course on what this book is all about?
Sure. The Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish text, maybe from a few centuries before Jesus. It's all about Enoch, who was Noah's great-grandfather, if you can believe it. It's got visions, trips through heaven, angels, the whole works.
And it was pretty popular back in the day, right?
Oh yeah, big time. Early Christians and Jews were reading it and talking about it. Even the New Testament mentions it. But eventually, most of them decided it didn't quite fit with their official collections of scriptures.
Except for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, right?
That's right. They still consider it part of their Bible. But for most others, it's kind of like this lost book, this hidden piece of the puzzle.
It's a puzzle that's full of wild stuff, too. Like, remember those Nephilim we talked about from Genesis? Well, Enoch goes into overdrive with their story.
Oh yeah, it spills all the beans. Enoch tells us those sons of God are actually fallen angels called the Watchers.
Fallen angels, huh? So they weren't exactly sticking to the divine plan, I take it.
Not exactly. They basically came down to Earth and,
Yeah.
well, they kind of liked what they saw. They started marrying human women and their kids. Those were the Nephilim, these giant, powerful beings wreaking havoc everywhere.
So Enoch is giving us the behind-the-scenes scoop that Genesis kind of skipped over.
That's right. Is adding all this backstory and drama.
And these watchers weren't just playing house, they're also busy spilling secrets. It's like the ultimate forbidden knowledge leak.
Right. Enoch lays out exactly what those angels taught humans. Stuff like how to make weapons, magic, even how to use makeup. They saw it as this corruption of the natural order, this betrayal of God's plan.
It's like they were trying to jumpstart human civilization, but not necessarily for the best reasons.
Exactly. And Enoch himself, he gets front row seats to all this cosmic drama. He goes on these crazy trips through heaven, sees God's throne, even checks out the angel jail.
Angel jail, that's intense.
Oh, yeah. He gets the grand tour.
Yeah.
Heaven, hell, the whole universe. And he's describing it all in this vivid detail.
So what happens to those rebel angels, the Watchers? Did they get away with it?
No way. God's not too happy about it. He sends the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, those guys, to dish out some divine punishment.
It's like a heavenly SWAT team.
Right. Azazel, one of the ringleaders, gets thrown into a pit filled with sharp rocks until Judgment Day. And the other watchers, they have to watch their giant kids, the Nephilim, get wiped out in the flood. Talk about a rough punishment.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that really caught my attention. The Son of Man in the Book of Enoch. That's a pretty loaded term, right?
It is. It's a term used in the Bible, too. And in Enoch, it's this divine being chosen by God to judge everyone and basically rule the world.
And isn't that how Jesus is often described?
Exactly. So the Book of Enoch gives us this early look at this idea of a divine ruler, which definitely influenced how people later thought about Jesus.
It's almost like a preview of the New Testament in this Old Testament text.
Right. It's showing how ideas evolve over time.
And to top it all off, Enoch ties everything together by saying that all this crazy stuff with the Watchers and Nephilim is why God sent the flood.
It's like the ultimate reset button. All that corruption, all those giants running around, God's like, nope, got to start over.
And this was a book that almost vanished completely. Talk about a close call.
I know. It survived mostly because the Ethiopian Orthodox Church kept it as part of their Bible. But for most of the world, it was lost for centuries, only rediscovered in the 1700s, and later with the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Now, with all this talk of angels, cosmic journeys, and hidden knowledge, some folks are going to connect it to UFOs and ancient aliens.
Oh yeah, that's a popular theory. Some people see Enoch's visions and descriptions as proof of ancient alien contact, advanced tech, all that.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. But, most scholars see it more as a religious text reflecting those ancient beliefs and anxieties.
So here's the big question. Why wasn't a book this popular, this detailed part of the official Bible for most people? It seems like it fills in a lot of gaps, answers a lot of questions about those weird parts of the Bible.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
It's a mystery that's puzzled scholars for a long time.
Maybe it was just too much, too strange, too mystical, too out there.
Could be. It's definitely got a lot going on. Visions, multiple heavens, angels meddling with humans. It's a lot to take in. Maybe some religious leaders felt it was, too wild for the average person.
Maybe they were worried it would just cause confusion, or maybe even, challenge their authority.
That's a possibility. When you're building a religion, you want a clear message, a unified story. Enoch might have just muddied the waters a bit too much.
And it seems like it might have clashed with some of the teachings that were becoming popular later on, right?
Yeah, like in early Christianity, there were all these different ideas floating around. Some people loved Enoch, others weren't so sure. And eventually, as the church became more organized, they had to decide what fit and what didn't.
So it's kind of like a popularity contest for ancient texts?
In a way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Enoch didn't quite make the cut. Maybe it was a little too, out of step with the official teachings.
And remember the whole thing about those fallen angels having kids with humans? That seems like it would have been a pretty controversial idea.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It really changes the story about where evil comes from, right? In the Bible, it's mostly about human choices.
Mm.
But Enoch throws these rebellious angels into the mix.
It's like saying, hey, maybe it's not all our fault. We had some help messing things up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a pretty radical idea. And maybe it's just made some people uncomfortable.
Plus, Enoch has a different take on why the flood happened, right? It's not just about punishing bad humans. It's also about cleaning up the mess these fallen angels created.
Yeah, it's like God is saying, look, this experiment with the Watchers and the Nephilim, it's gone too far. Time for a hard reset. It's a different spin on the classic flood story.
And you mentioned something earlier about how some religious leaders might have wanted to control what people knew. That makes sense, right? Knowledge is power, after all.
It is, and throughout history, those in charge have often tried to, well, manage the flow of information, keep things tidy, keep people from asking too many questions.
It's like, here's the official version of the story, stick to that, and we'll all be fine.
Right. And Enoch, with all its wild ideas and complex stories, might have just been a little too much for them to handle.
Especially when you compare it to Revelation, right? Both books have those crazy end-of-the-world visions as bizarre creatures, but one's in the Bible and one's not. It makes you wonder if there was an agenda there.
It does. Maybe Revelation fit better with the story that the early church leaders wanted to tell. It's all about Jesus overcoming evil, establishing a new heaven and a new earth. Enoch, on the other hand, well, it focuses more on those fallen angels and what happened before the flood.
It's like choosing between a blockbuster action movie and a dark historical drama. Maybe they went with the more crowd-pleasing option.
Could be, but it does make you think about what might have been lost in the process. Those different perspectives, those alternative explanations, they all add to the richness of the story.
So it really seems like there were a lot of reasons why Enoch got left out. Maybe it was too strange, maybe it challenged those in power, maybe it just didn't fit the narrative they were going for. But when you look at it in the context of what's going on in the world today, it's almost like it was removed because it hit a little too close to home. Like it revealed something that those in power didn't want us to know.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? Like, what if Enoch holds some truths that are still relevant today? Truths that might make us question the way things are.
That's what makes it so fascinating. And you brought up some really intriguing connections between Enoch and modern-day issues, like how the Watchers giving out forbidden knowledge is similar to those conspiracy theories about secret societies and hidden knowledge.
Right. It's like that idea of a select few controlling information, using it to influence the world. It's a theme that keeps popping up throughout history.
It's like, are the people in charge today, are they like the Watchers, keeping us in the dark for their own benefit?
It's a question worth asking. And then there's the Nephilim, those angel-human hybrids. It's like a creepy foreshadowing of our own obsession with genetic engineering and artificial intelligence, isn't it?
Right. We're playing with the building blocks of life, merging technology with our bodies. It's like we're trying to become those Nephilim ourselves.
It's like we're repeating the same story, just with different tools. And the flood. That's a pretty obvious parallel to the climate crisis we're facing now.
It's like we're messing with nature, pushing things too far, and risking another global catastrophe.
History often repeats itself, or at least rhymes, right?
And with all the talk about UFOs lately, it's hard not to think about Enoch's trips through heaven and those strange beings he encounters.
It's like he's describing ancient alien encounters. It makes you wonder if there's something to those stories that we're only now starting to understand.
And Enoch's vision of a final judgment, the battle between good and evil. Doesn't that sound familiar in today's world?
It does, with all the conflicts, the divisions, the feeling that things are spiraling out of control.
It's like we're living through a real-life book of Revelation, so it's pretty strange, isn't it? We're okay with talking donkeys and time-traveling sundials in the Bible, but a book that dives deeper into those mysteries is considered off-limits.
It is strange. Like, why keep the mystery but get rid of the explanation?
For example, Genesis mentions the Nephilim, but Enoch gives us the full backstory, tells us who they were, where they came from.
Right. It's like the Bible gives us this cliffhanger and then throws away the rest of the story.
And Ezekiel's vision, with those weird creatures, it sounds a lot like what Enoch describes during his trips through heaven. So, are they both seeing the same things? And if so, why is one version considered holy and the other is tossed aside?
Maybe one was just easier to fit into the official story, you know?
And how about Balaam's talking donkey, or that time God made the sundial run backward? Those are pretty supernatural events, but they're in the Bible. So why is Enoch, which tries to explain some of that stuff, seen as too much?
Maybe it was just too revealing, too challenging to those in power at the time.
And Revelation, that book is full of crazy stuff. It's
Yeah.
basically Enoch's weird cousin that made it to the family reunion.
It's like they picked and chose which parts of the story to tell, which parts to keep hidden.
Maybe Enoch's version was just a little too honest, a little too unsettling. Maybe it revealed something that they didn't want people to know.
Maybe it showed us a different side of God, a different side of history, a different side of ourselves.
It's almost like they were trying to protect us from the truth, or maybe just protect themselves.
Because if we knew the full story, if we understood the real forces at play, well, who knows what we might do?
It's like that saying, history is written by the victors. So whose story are we really being told?
That's the question, isn't it? Is it the full story? Or is it just the version those in power want us to believe?
And if they're controlling this story, they're probably controlling a lot more, right? Like how we think, how we learn.
It's about shaping the narrative, shaping our understanding of the world.
Which is probably why they've been gradually removing the Bible from schools, right? It's not an outright ban, more like a slow fade out. Less Bible, more focus on, well, just fitting in.
And while the Bible's being pushed aside, it seems like other religions and spiritual ideas are getting more attention. It makes you wonder if there's a reason why the Bible is specifically targeted.
It's like they want to dilute its message, its power. Maybe they see it as too absolute, too challenging to the way things are now.
It's a possibility.
It's almost like they're saying, here, try this instead. It's a little softer, a little less likely to make you think too hard.
Because a society that questions, a society that thinks critically, that's a society that can't be easily controlled, right?
Right. And maybe they don't want us to think too hard. Maybe they want us to just accept the story they're telling, the world they're creating.
What's the plan then? What can we do?
Well, I think it starts with awareness, right?
Mm.
Recognizing that the story we're being told might not be the whole story.
We need to dig deeper, ask questions, and not be afraid to challenge the narrative.
And that's what we're all about here, folks. We're digging deep, exploring the mysteries, and encouraging you to do the same. Because the truth, well, it's out there. It might be hidden, it might be suppressed, but it's waiting to be uncovered.
It's a journey, for sure. And it's a journey worth taking.
So keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and never stop digging for the truth.
Because the more we know, the more we understand, the more power we have to shape our own destinies.
That's it for this deep dive, folks. We'll see you next time.